Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman and Lois. So as we know, or hopefully most of us would know, we have these strikes going on within Hollywood through the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild. With the commencement of the Screen Actors Guild shutting down pretty much most productions around North America, but when it comes to the landscape of television, most projects were halted and sort of sentenced to the abyss of the unknown when the writer's strike started about 4 months or so ago, roughly, something like that. And this did have a lot of people flashing back to the late 2000s when the last writer's strike went down, which, affected many shows, whether it was just how they were released or their fates in general, with some being cancelled or being made in a rush that then led to poor quality, then resulting in lower viewership, which then resulted in cancellation. This also impacting movies as well, where they just kept filming through, using some scripts that are, they're pretty arse. But one of the shows that we all know and love that is impacted by both strikes is that of Superman and Lois, because the writer's strike started before they even could, properly start working on season 4, outside of maybe some really early ideas. But there isn't really, there's not much officially written for next season. And then, of course, the writer's strike, there's, where there's no acting or productions happening. That one's pretty simple. But due to this, there has been a lot of questions about Superman and Lois. With one of the main ones being, will the show be cancelled if they can't return to filming by a certain point? Is there actually a deadline in regards to when they can return to filming or not? And funnily enough, in an interview with Deadline, Perry Sook, which is a bit of an unfortunate name, the CEO of Nexstar, who now are majority shareholders of the CW, did give an update, with it being said that the CW has had to delay 4 scripted shows produced by minority shareholders, that being Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount, due to the writers and actors strike. But it does not expect any further impact from the labour impasse, with Mr. Sook saying this: "The farther the strike goes on, they could push farther and farther, or further and further, might I say, into 2024. But going further to address the writers and actors strike, he said, "We are confident it will not hurt our forward progress at the CW. The majority of our fall slate was material already developed and for unscripted." Now, the fall slate that he is referencing there isn't your shows like Superman Lois or All American or Walker or shows like that. Those are shows like All American Walker and Superman Lois. They are the ones that are delayed into an unknown period of 2024 and just pushed further and further into that year, like he's referencing earlier on. In regards to the ones that are airing in that fall slate, he is referencing those acquired shows from places like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. If you're watching Superman Lois last season, or maybe even the last season of The Flash, you might have seen ads for these shows that you've thought were really random, and they said oh, this is a new season, as if the show's already been on the CW. So it's those type of shows. So I don't think any of them are American shows like the other shows that are being held off until 2024 because of the strikes. But what should we take from these quotes? Should there be worry? And the answer to that is pretty simply no. I've seen a lot of fear mongering due to this article, this specific article and interview, which I think is super weird, because he pretty much says they are willing to delay them until whenever the strike comes to an end, and it's over, and the writers first up can go back to work on the various show and start, writing the scripts, and then obviously later on the actors can join in and do the acting, which not only highlights some patience, but also faith in the respective shows of Superman, Lois, and those other ones that I mentioned earlier. I mean, I think it'd be worrying if it was yeah, man, we're just going week to week and just seeing how things are balancing out and all of that, and we're just sort of, figuring things out as we go. But he's like, no, we'll just wait. We'll just wait until they're ready to go. I mean, if he was saying that thing where he's just sort of going week to week and everything like that, and that's what he said in the interview, then hell yeah, be concerned, because it sounds like they have no idea if that was the case, because it would indicate that they have maybe a certain date or deadline that the strikes have to end by if the shows were going to survive or not, and that deadline would be sooner rather than later. However, though he doesn't hint at there actually being a deadline, like January 1st, it has to be done by the end of 2023 or something like that. Though there isn't a deadline set like that officially, I think there realistically is a deadline, but it's so far away that I don't think the strikes could actually realistically go on that long. And that deadline would be that the shows have to at least start airing by maybe this time next year, if not around maybe June or early July. But that would mean, if we include the writing process and then the filming process and then just the journey to it actually airing on TV, you would probably need the strikes to end by maybe late February or sometime in March of next year at the latest. And that is usually, at least in the case of Superman and Lois, around the time the show would usually premiere a new season. I think the past 2 seasons it's premiered around that time. So realistically, the show could maybe only be delayed from screens at the very least in regards to Superman and Lois by a few months from the intended premiere date that most assumed it would come out anyway. But we have had reports coming out, recently that the strikes in their current form at the very least might at the extreme last until January or February. Like that's as long as they could go. But that's all really like hypothetical and like just overall estimation. So while there isn't a deadline being set, there is sort of like one that would be floating in the background for the most part. An estimation came out that the studios would be able to last pretty easily until the end of next year, so pretty much 18 months, while, as I said before, the unions at max would be able to go maybe for another 6 months roughly. But that can change easily if there are donations to the unions to support its members. I think the estimations previously were like 4 months, and then they got all these donations, which pushed it to 6. So if those donations keep coming, then the unions can go on longer. You'd hope that that's not the case. They don't have to do that, but that could happen. Now, a question that sort of follows on from this is that, could there be any downsides with the respective shows, not just on the CW, but all over TV, but I guess mainly Superman and Lois in regards to this video? Could there be any downsides to these delays and if they go further and further and further into 2024? Well, outside of cancellation, obviously, because that's probably the worst possible outcome, I think one of the bigger concerns, at least on a surface level, is less episodes. The last strike with the writers back in the late 2000s did result in cuts to episode numbers throughout many shows. For some, it was maybe like 2 or 3 episodes, and back then most shows were around 20 episodes roughly anyway, so taking 2, 3, maybe 4 episodes out, even 5, not that much of a difference. But for some, it was going from like 20 episodes down to like 8 or something like that. And those were the shows that did struggle and did end up getting cancelled, or if they did survive that season, like barely, they ended up getting cancelled the following season because the damage from the previous season just couldn't be repaired in the following season when they tried to return to normal. In regards to Superman and Lois, we do know at the start when it was renewed, whenever that was at the very least, it would be 10 episodes long for season 4. So it was already dropping down from 13 to 10. So that's what we're starting off at, 10 episodes. So could it be cut down from there? I mean, and the answer to that is like maybe. Like 10 is already a small number, so you'd be thinking that they'd just be fine doing 10 anyway. But as I said, some shows in the last strike did go down to like 8 or so episodes. So Superman and Lois could go down to that as well if there are any issues, and that is all they can produce like when they go back. But it is a wait and see. It's probably going to depend on when the strikes end and just sort of when they can start writing, and then whenever that comes, more importantly, filming. But with all of this, it is hard to tell when certain updates are going to come out regarding stuff like this. I don't want to, make speculatory videos based off nothing, because I think it's almost offensive at the same time in regards to the strikes that are going on. So I'd rather just talk about it when there's actually stuff coming out from people like the CEOs or whoever it might be. But I think this could be the last word about the show for a while in regards to what's happening with it, at least in regards to anything official. This is coming out after something else came out from the actual CEO of the CW, which I'm going to talk about in another video. So I think this will be the last thing we officially get from someone, at least timeline-wise, for a while. Because it also came out a few days ago, I think, that even if the Writers Guild come to an agreement with the studios, they won't go back to work. They will keep striking alongside the actors until a deal is made there. Because if the writers, especially for TV, can go back to work, the studios will be like, sweet. Like that gives them 3 months of work, because I think the prep time is usually around that time anyway, before they go back to film anything. So the studios be fine with that. But if the writers are like, hey, no, we're not going to go back to work until the actors are dealt with as well, then that speeds up hopefully what the actors are trying to do. So that definitely threw a spanner in the works, because while the Writers Guild aren't close to making a deal really, apparently, they are closer than the Actors Guild apparently. And at least if the writers could go back to work, there could be like a game plan to a return for shows and movie productions, but the uniting of the guilds, or the uniting of the unions, would disrupt that game plan for the studios. And you know what? That's fair enough. Stand by your fellow worker and everything like that. So that will be an interesting thing to monitor over the coming weeks and, let's be honest, coming months. But, hopefully there's like some positive chat that happens, because, as I said, the studios are going to be able to last a while. Like they're just going to delay things until next year. Like there's anything coming, we're already seeing it. Like Sony delayed everything, I think it was, to next year. So you'll see a lot of the studios do that, and they'll be fine next year, I think, for the most part. Maybe maybe not on the TV landscape, but then they'll probably just rerun stuff. I mean, Disney's already doing it. They're showing like is it 2 of the Disney Plus shows they're putting onto ABC. So they're just probably going to do that. So get used to probably a lot of reruns or content shifting to other networks or other places than when they originally started. So shows going from streaming to actually being on network TV. That's probably what's going to happen if a deal can't be, met fairly soon. So hopefully everything works out for the best, because I think it hurts both sides. But yeah, obviously, I think all the workers and stuff should be compensated pretty fairly. So let's hope that, everything works out for the best. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. Go drop a like and to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this. Are you worried? Do you think people are blowing it out of proportion? And let me know your thoughts there in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.